In this example, we're going to approximate decimals on the number line using benchmarks. So we're going to use the benchmarks that we created, the quarters that we learned in the last video. And in this case, the quarters aren't here, so I want to show you how you can use them. So let's just remind ourselves, we'll look between 0 and 1. And if we wanted to make quarter benchmarks, it's actually really pretty easy, even if they're not given. So I'm going to cut it in half, and this will be 0.5. And then you can cut the halves in half. This would be 1/4. And cut this half in half, and this would be 3/4, or 0.75. So this is why quarters is a good way to approximate decimals on the number line. So let's plot these. So we have 1.6. Well, 1.6 is greater than 1 and less than 2. It's in here. I'm going to find 0.5, and I'm not even going to draw the next one. It's 1.6 is a little bit bigger than 1.5. And again, it's approximate, but it's correct relative to 1.5 and 2. It's between those two values. I don't have it over here. So this is a good approximation. Now let's look at 2.9. So if I cut it in half, this is 2.5. I want to get a little bit better, so I'm going to cut the halves in half, and I'm going to make that a little bit smaller so I know it as a reference point. So this is 2.75. So it's going to be 2.9 is pretty close to 3. It's greater than 2.75. So I'm going to plot it right there. Next we have negative 1.4. Well, that will be between negative 1 and negative 2. So first I'm going to cut it in half. That would be negative 1.5. And I'm happy with that. Negative 1.4 will be a little bit further to the right. So this is negative 1.5. Negative 1.4 would be right around here. And notice, since we're working with negative numbers, it's the opposite of what you think. Here to the right is negative 1.4, where here to the right was 1.6. It was greater. Remember, this is negative 1.5. This would be, just to give you an idea, that would be negative 1.75. So it's working in the other direction. And finally, negative 2.8. So that's between negative 2 and 3. I'm going to cut this in half. And negative 2.8 is between negative 2.75 and 3. So I'm going to make one more small little mark. And negative 2.8 would be a little bit closer than that to negative 3. So notice I didn't even have to draw all of the benchmarks, all 4 for each one. I just used the ones I needed, and it's a lot easier than trying to make 10 equal segments in here. Now we have the same idea, but we have hundredths place. So with the hundredths place, you could think of it as being between 0 and 1/10. Halfway would be 0.05, or 5 hundredths. So remember, this is 1/10 is 10 hundredths. This would be, I'll label this on top, 0.025, and this would be 0.075. Okay, so notice it's just basically moving the decimal 1 to the left, or you have a 0 in the tenths place, because this is between 0 and 1/10, so it's not going to be a whole tenth in any of these cases. But you have the 25. We'll write this as 50. 0.05, 0.075. So now let's use these. I'm going to change colors. So we have 0.64. Okay, so this is 0, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So 0.64 is between 0.6 and 0.7. Okay, halfway would be 0.65. 0.65. So 0.64 is a little bit less than that. And again, it's not perfect, but it's a good approximation. So this is 0.64. 0.25. Well, the good news here is that's between 0.2 and 0.3, so 2 orange strips and 3 orange strips. This is 2 orange and then 5 yellows, so halfway between. So this is exactly halfway between, like here. So I can just draw the 1 dot right in the middle. Now let's look at the negative values. So we have negative 0.53. So this is negative 0.1, negative 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. So here's negative 0.5 and here's negative 0.6. So it's between these. Okay. Now halfway between would be negative 0.55. Okay. This would be negative 0.55. So negative 0.53 is a little bit bigger than that, remember, because it's negative, so it's the opposite. I'm going to plot it right about here. Okay. That actually looks like it's halfway between, which would be negative 5.25. But again, we're approximating. It's close enough. And it's correct relative to these values. And finally, negative 7.1. Well, this was negative 0.6, negative 0.7. I'm going to throw caution to the wind, and you can do this too. Negative 7.1 is just a little bit more. It's just 1/100th more. So think about adding 1 yellow. It would be a little bit to the left. And here's negative 0.71.